Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Richard Lewis Show. And joining me is a guest where I might get a little bit starstruck. During my time back in Counterstrike Source, he was probably, at one point, the greatest AWPer in the world. I think that's a fair comment. Now he's in Valorant. I can't get my head around it. But it is Danny fRoD and Montaner. It's great to see you, brother. It's been a while. Long time coming. Right now, how are things treating you over there in that new game?
It's going good, man. First of all, I appreciate you having me on. It's been a long time, like you said.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've just been enjoying it a lot because, to be honest, I've really loved like the coaching side. I've always been doing it. Like I did the guide with Duncan a long time ago and stuff. So for me, like coaching and teaching is like a big passion of mine. So I wouldn't say that my first choice was to get into Valorant. I just think that after what happened with ESL and them killing off like the NA division and our spot getting removed from us, I think opportunities kind of dried up heavily, which unfortunately I was like battling through thick and thin, trying my very best to like let awareness be shown about like what's going on. But anyways, it just led me to Valorant, and to be honest, it's a blessing in disguise, and not just because of the game, but more because I can do what I was kind of brought here to do as far as like coaching and stuff. And it didn't really start that way, I guess, with T1, or maybe I thought in my mind it did, but now where I'm at with Beastcoast, I think it's been amazing just because they've brought me here to do a job. I'm held accountable to what I'm brought here to do. I'm responsible for what I'm here to do, and like that's what I thrive for, right? In that sort of role, build a team, be held accountable, and make the decisions and stuff like that. So it's been going great these last couple months that I've been with them, just because of simply that, just being able to do what I think that like, and not have any worries about it. Yeah.
Well, before we get into the current drama, because that's how the kids like it when you do a podcast.
Yeah.
So you put you front load it with all the current stuff, and then you kind of meander out. But just before we do that, I want to talk about kind of the end of days, as it were, within North American Counterstrike. You were part of a team that was called Lazarus. That was the team that was affected by this decision, where basically ESL were just like, sorry, that NA division that you all prided yourself on is gone. And, it was a massive hit, part of a series of dominoes that fell to get us to the point where the preferred competitive FPS in North America is Valorant right now. And I don't know if there is a way back. I personally don't see it. But, that was a good team. I mean, that was a team with like big names. You had Celsius in there, and Sabrosa in there, and Brax was in there. These are all guys now that are obviously over in Valorant doing well for themselves. And you were rightly furious at the time about that decision. And I think one of the things I've always liked is you do fucking speak your mind, So So
for better, for worse.
Yeah, and listen, mate, I know as much as anyone it can backfire on you often. But talk me through what was happening, because you seem genuinely surprised that they took that decision, like they just dropped it on you.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for DK, we would know nothing, because to my understanding, things were status quo. We were going as normal, because when we got eliminated from our last pro league, it was like, yeah, relegation's coming. I'm pretty sure we went through relegation and all that. We made it through and all that. And like, I think that we had to, there was more next steps, and we obviously heard things were coming, but there was never any whiff of that. Anytime we talked to any admins or anyone there, it was no problem, nothing. And then DK's article came out, and then it was, what bothered me about it is that I wasn't looking at the present. Like, obviously it affected my team currently, but I don't think that people were understanding the long-term ramifications that this had, Yeah, I was considered one of the best players in my time, but I also came up from the bottom ranks. I wasn't like some of the old school 3D guys that maybe were like born into the CPLs, and all that. I grew up in the rankings. So like, I see the value of hitting it and then going up. And what I saw them doing is just cutting off the lifeline of talent that would go up into the scene. They were removing spots and moving them out of NA. The current NA teams that were in there, like EG and Liquid and whatnot, like you can't consider them NA teams because they're like international players, but they're also located elsewhere as well. Brazilians aren't even really considered NA teams just because they're like based here. They can just like pack up their bags and go to Europe and boot camp and be based out of there. So in actuality, it was just like removing the lifeline of the NA CS scene. And that had that really bothered me because there was no communication. And that leads me to the other part of like, after the fact, weeks after DK came out and stuff, that's when, we started to have light communication with guys like Carmack and I call him Ehrlich Bachman, but
Yeah.
DJ, what's his name?
Ulrich, the flying DJ.
Yeah, Ehrlich Bachman from that show, so Silicon Valley. Anyways, they got me on a call, and it was one of those like pity calls, like, hey, you've been around for a long time, this is the least we could do for you. And my mindset going into it was like, what the hell's going on here? Like I don't need a pity call from you guys. I need you guys to explain to me what the hell's going on here, because I don't need you to tell me, like, obviously I know that I'm screwed. I know that potential org offers that our team had, because Lazarus had just recently dropped us, was a problem. And I wanted and I just knew what was going down, because, we were in Pro League with Lazarus and our organization never got a dime of profit sharing, anything like that. So my mindset is, how could you have a league that has 20 something teams and only give profit sharing to a handful of teams? Like, you're already putting any organization that wants to be involved into that industry at a competitive disadvantage simply by not giving them the same revenue stream as a different organization. So that alone is going to give people or organizations, it's going to turn them away from even wanting to invest in Counterstrike, because it's not even about finding profitability in Counterstrike. It's how do I get into the circle jerk that is the Louvre agreement, to be able to then get profit sharing, to then be considered an equal to my peers, which is on an organizational level. And that is where it becomes frustrating. And that business model is where and then, I can go on and on about it, but it was just, to me, very frustrating. The conversation that we had was very, very vague, and one these organizations like the Complexities, the ENSs of the world, the OGs of the world got together, maybe hardballed a little bit. ESL said they were going to create a league, and we just said, you know what, let's roll out the red carpet. Don't create your league. Come on by ESL. We'll, hand you over Pro League spots from different teams, restructure it and call it something different. And it's kind of like, well, are you going to say that? Like, are you going to actually come out and tell people the truth of what's going on? And it's like, every time I tweet at Carmack, it's, some gaslighting bullshit. Like, yeah, you remember the conversation differently. It's like, I clearly don't, dude. Like, I know how he's been like a fanboy of like the Polish players and scene since like 2002. Like, I always knew that he was kind of around those guys, and he's just not giving the straight answer. And it's frustrating, because it's not even about me being involved in the scene for a long time. It's that people that are in the scene, and they tell you that they want the scene to last a long time, but in reality, all they give a fuck about is themselves. Sorry for cursing. I don't know if I can.
No, you can definitely curse, brother.
Sorry, okay.
It's all good.
Yeah. So it's, it's more of like, how can I make sure that I'm taken care of, and then we'll worry about the rest, which lines up with like the CSPPA and everybody else who's just in it for themselves or their tiny group, and then fuck the rest of the world. You know what I mean? And that's not how CS is. CS was never like that. Every single team that came up and made a name from, like, whether it was Complexity would not have been anything if it wasn't for us. Bad News Bears group of guys got together and became who we are. So for me, it's always about the players and stuff like that. And it just frustrates me that ESL is taking away all these opportunities from all these players, and then making it difficult for organizations to be even involved, which in turn give no opportunities to players and longevity and anything like that. So it's just like a big thing. And sorry, I went off a lot about it.
No, hey, well, look, yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. It's essentially what has pushed you out of Counterstrike, which has been your game, all your life, it is kind of crazy to think about the way that it all went down. Now, I'd heard the same stuff. Basically, orgs were essentially wanting to get more value out of these leagues, because obviously in other games you have the franchise leagues. That's the North American model. It's what North American team owners like. It's the only way you can really get value from the huge kind of VC injections. You have to own an asset essentially, and that's what a franchise slot is. Of course, it only holds value as long as the league exists, but no one really thinks ahead in esports. So, I on the one hand, I understand what they were creating with the Pro League. It's been very good for the teams that are in it. Financially, they've made a profit. But the fact that there were no contingencies for teams that weren't going to be included, people had slots literally taken away from them. People used to sell those fucking slots.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean,
you know,
and we were
orgs had to buy you out of your slot as
we
a
were
player.
one of the very few orgless pro league teams,
Mm.
and it just got taken from us, and that's a huge opportunity for us. And you know that went down the drain. And I guess my kind of beef was it too is like we actually believed in ESL. We were playing in your league, brother. Like we weren't Ents that dropped your league. We weren't Complexity, who I guess I don't know what happened, but they might have been demoted, but they weren't in the pro league or something like that. Like, or we weren't OG, a brand new team either. Like we were there. We were fighting for it. We have guys like Brax, who is like, you know, that ESL and all those guys like wanted to do good by Brax by like giving him an opportunity to compete where other people wouldn't and stuff like that. And they ripped that from him too. You know, that was his only thing.
Yeah.
So like my story is almost similar to his, unfortunately, like different circumstance, but it's like he was pushed out of the scene. Like, what am I going to do here? It's like he had worked for years prior to me even joining as a coach to build this team with his asterisks of a ban. And that's where I was coming in. Like, look, Brax, like, hey, you got to asterisk, brother. Everyone who's going to come in is going to want to come in and come out because they're going to view it as an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't compete in majors. It's a hard thing, but like, let's make our own team. Let's do our thing. Let's build this. And he was doing that. And then boom, just taken from him because maybe we didn't have the huge name. And it's very, and just the way they did it. And to tie into what you're saying earlier, like, you know, even if you were like one of the 18 or whatever pro league teams, like what if you were like Big Klein or one of those guys? Like if you're not in the Louvre agreement, you're still an outsider looking in. So it's like, that was my beef with ESL as well. Is like, you have to be able to pay out profit sharing to every member of pro league, not just the few that you deem worthy of it, you know? Because the people that they deem worthy of it too is based on a friendship outside of the server, because their performance means nothing as to why they're there. And the reason why I know that is because when they were doing this transition of the league, notice that there's 0 relegation now. So they've done away with the whole process of relegation. Like they sneakily done that because after they fucked everyone over and assuming there was no COVID, the next pro league season would not have had relegation. So even if your brand new pro league team that's in the Louvre agreement would have gone 0-12 or bombed out a group, they would have still not made relegation. So even if say my team Lazarus got a pity card into pro league and we got 5th place, we might get relegated because we're not in the circle jerk. And that to me is like, what's the point of a relegation? It doesn't even operate like soccer in Europe or football in Europe, you know, where it's like bottom tier. It is what it is, homie. Like if your team can't cut it, you don't deserve to be in the Premier League. And it's like, it doesn't work that way in Counterstrike. You can't even compare anything the way, like you can compare Counterstrike to different sports, but the way that ESL is running Counterstrike as if you were maybe like an NBA, you cannot compare what they're doing to any other sport because it's a complete mash of everything, not just like holding true to one thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, though, right? So what kind of got lost in all of the noise was that ESL took those slots, essentially didn't financially reimburse the players who owned the slots that had earned the slots, didn't have a contingency or a league that was going to even come close to generating the same revenue for those teams by virtue of competition. And there was simply nothing you could do about it. It was go fuck yourself because the protection was supposedly the CSPPA. And as I'm sure you saw, I don't even know if you replied to it at the time, but even the CSPPA representatives, i.e. the players that are meant to represent the players, guys like Chris J, they said, there's nothing we can do. And
I tweeted a couple things to him. I'm sorry to cut you off.
But... No, it's fine, brother. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I don't remember it. So
I mean,
what went down there?
No, I was tweeting at them because it's offensive to me, you know, like I've been in this game before these guys were even involved in Counterstrike. So for people to have some sort of union, which obviously I could have benefited from my whole career, and it's to only serve a handful of people is, well, your screen's like hella green now. You can see it on my face, huh?
Oh, wait, I still see me. That's weird. That might be at your end. That might be
let me alt tab this thing.
Yeah, no way. There you go.
Oh,
no.
Okay, I think we're good now.
Okay, cool. You don't need to look at my ugly mug anyway, mate. You can.
No, but because my camera's here, your screen's here, so
right,
at least
okay.
I don't feel like I'm talking to a black screen. But anyways,
Right. No worries, bro.
So I gave a lot of crap to Chris J and stuff like that because it was offensive that these guys, there's not they're only representing a small group of people. Like, how could you act as a players union and you don't even care at all about people outside of your core group, which is what, a handful of players from the top teams in the world would just so happen to be a part of the Louvre agreement and whatnot as well. It's like the same people helping the same people or protecting themselves from the same people. But it's all the same people. And, it's just frustrating because, like I said, so I got into coaching, obviously, like my players, like Zelsis, Brax, all those guys, like we were in pro league. Never once did anyone in CSPPA contact me to like get me involved or ask my opinion about absolutely anything, whether it was before it happened or after it happened. At no point. They also did not contact any of my players to like ask them what's going down. How can we help you? Or anything. Like, if you were not a highly salaried pro player, part of these select teams, like we honestly probably didn't give a shit about you in that sense. So, because you can't tell me that these guys did not know what was going down. They knew what was going down. They didn't say jack shit. They didn't defend anybody, because what happened was I'm I could bet money that they knew what was going down, realized that they were going to be okay, and said, ESL, do what you got to do. And then when they realized all this was going to happen and DK got word, spread it out, all hell broke loose. Because there's no way that some of this information was not passed along at some point through the CSPPA or players that were in.
Oh, they for sure knew, yeah.
So it's like, I hold them just as much as accountable too. So like, you can't come out and try and defend and try and say this and that when it's like, you knew that your peers were about to get fucked over, that the lifeline that leads into NA and other scenes are going to get fucked over, and you said nothing. In fact, you probably voted to be okay because you were going to be fine. That's not how like this whole industry has worked when this is like the wild, wild west. This isn't like Valorant or other scenes where the developer is like heavily involved in the making the league. It's like people like you and me make the league,
Yeah.
We make the league. So it's like we have to uphold it to something at some extent. And when these players are doing that, it's just it's borderline offensive for them to come out and sort of tweet in some sort of vague defense when you just spit on all of us, especially people that were involved in the scene way longer than them. Guys like Brax were probably playing before them, because even though Brax is a young guy, the dude was involved in ESEA since he was like 13 years old. You know what I'm saying? So it's like he's an old school OG guy as well that also got screwed over before Chris J and other guys probably even like were really heavily competing in the scene. And it just sucks. It really does.
Well, what about the NA representatives? This is what I don't get, because I don't want to throw any names out there, because I always got the impression, like, say, for example, I don't think Elish was too happy with the way it was all handled based on tweets he was liking. Obviously, the position he's in. He's a smart guy. He can't say anything publicly. But, I mean, it seemed to me there was a lot of European guys talking about nothing we can do for NA. And it's like, where were all the North American representatives?
Yeah, unfortunately, they were probably considered on European teams as well, like Liquid and EG. Like, they're on the international teams. So if they realize, well, hey, we still find a home, whether it's here, whether it's here, like, we're good. It's that whole, it's that take care of yourself mindset. And that's not how this is done. I think I've always believed, and this is what I've at least did when I was a pro player, is I used whatever leverage I could find with my status to better the situation for myself and my players and my teammates. And you could ask like Jason Lake and Warden about our little disagreements and stuff like that, how I use whatever leverage I could to improve our situation. And others out there, even in CGS, I was one of the main. So when CGS, the first season of the CGS, they did not let us compete in anything. So I was super frustrated.
I remember that. What was the name of that guy who got banned because he went to a local LAN?
Asian, Kevin Wang.
AZN. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, AZN. That's the guy.
Asian. Yeah. Good. He was a cool guy, great guy, and he he was one of those guys that said, "Fuck this! I'm not gonna not compete in a different. Like, I just want to play." We were like teachers, man. Like we were in CGS for 3 months. That's it. You couldn't compete. So I was one of the main players that was always outspoken and vocal about it. I even threatened to not sign my contract for the second year until things were going to get changed for the betterment of what happened. What happened? Second year, we were able to compete. Yeah. We were able to go on. Who are we up against? DirecTV? I don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, we the players built this. We can walk together. It's not a problem. Obviously I probably did not want that to happen, but I probably could have just like quit and gone to 1.6 again, which happened in 8 months after that anyways, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Like,
that's where
what do
all
I care?
roads led back to it, you know?
Yeah, like, you know, we come from a day where we were like, I held jobs, I saved allowance money and like did chores around the house to like buy my first ticket to CPL. You know what I'm saying? It's a different mindset. Like, I'll just go back and find my way out in CS 1.6 again if CGS is screwed like this. It's fine.
Must be
So
weird then now that you're over in Valorant, because that seems to be the next market that the North American owners are, in my opinion, already overinflating. You know, I'm sure you saw all the story about Tenz's alleged buyouts, and you know, there was a report saying it was as high as like 5 million, which Jack from Cloud9 disputed that was garbage. But a source I trust publicly said it was close to 2 mil. So, you know, it's kind of weird. They're like making it so hard for themselves because it's not even a fully fledged esport yet. We're in the fun stage, building it up, and yet already we're talking millions of dollars and crazy money just on the promise of what Riot might do in the future. So, what's it like being involved in Valorant over there at the moment and kind of seeing all of this? Because you've just come from Counterstrike, where you've seen, you know, kind of the end of days, the end result of rampant VC money and not a lot of forethought. And now it's kind of out of the frying pan into the fire, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, it's I would say it's bittersweet because I'm a very forward thinking kind of person. Like, I don't like to think in the past much at all. You know, I learn my lessons and move on. Like, I've taken different opportunities before, so it's not like my first time that I've tried other things. So I do like Valorant a lot, and I think the main reason why is because the developer actually gives a shit. For better or for worse, I've at least had communication with them in many different instances. I've had the ability to give them my point of view of like the demo files, certain things that I think that should be done to help integrity in Valorant, and whether they listen or not, at least they're giving me their ear. Counter-Strike never gave a shit about what I had to say. So, like, for me, that's good. And it sucks. And the reason why I say it's bittersweet is because it sucks, because I would love so badly to have been involved in Counter-Strike and have developed into more. I wanted to be a tier 1 coach. I wanted to be a part of it. You know, when things went down at Lazarus, I reached out to some of those players on the pro league, on the CSPPA type players, like whether it be like the Tariks or the Elisias, and tried to see if there was opportunities, and no one gave a shit. No one's responded to me. And it's like, you know, I'm unfortunately like one of the old school guys that I only have the ear of a few guys that I can at least mentor and try and help. And I think that I've been able to do a decent job of helping them. And unfortunately, you just have like some of your pro players that they just, you know, they think that they know it all and can do it their own way. And, you know, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, the way that I've kind of approached it is, you know, you reap what you sow. If you play for checks or you play for trophies, like, it is what it is. Like, as you see here, like, I got some of my stuff, my ESL pro leagues, you know, I got my stuff. I competed for why I competed, and everybody around me knew that. And I think that some of the players nowadays, they don't really compete for the same reasons. And, you know, if they compete to have a big bank account, well, hey, congratulations, you've achieved that. But you don't have this. And that's what people actually compete for. And, you know, hey.
Well, you know, I think you, I mean, that's my mindset. It's always been my mindset. You know, if you can't be the best at something, you know, probably not worth even starting to learn how to do it, frankly. I mean, you know, I'm kind of that guy. I like to get to the top and sort of look down and go, right, what am I going to do now? You know, it's like that. So, but there's a lot of kids moving over to Valorant right now. I think, I don't know, you know, keep in mind, there's a lot of CS guys who are like, I don't hate the NA dudes for moving over, or I haven't got a problem with that. Like, you know, it's like, listen, you got to go make money. You're not going to make it in CS and NA anymore. You got to do something, right? But there's a lot of players I see who couldn't hang in Counter-Strike, basically moving over and like saying, "Oh, I love Valorant," and you go, "You're so full of shit, dog." Like, I mean, you're a Counter-Strike player who basically couldn't hang anymore.
Yeah, you can find out your opportunists, and you can find out your people who are, you know, highly skilled and they just want to compete, you know. And whether you want to compete for the fun of it or whether because your friends are in it or whatever, like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, your heart is in the right place when it comes to, I want to compete. I want to be better than my friends. That's great. Like, you want to compete amongst your friends. Fantastic. But if it's all about like, hey, the paychecks are fat over here, it's like, I mean, come on, like you got to view it like longevity, you know, like the check could be fat for 3 months, but then it dries up for the rest of your career.
Yep.
If you want to look at it consistently like that, I think that you should find like something that, you know, you could thrive in and grow in. And a lot of these guys, I think they bite off a lot more than they can chew heading into Valorant, especially coming in with such highly inflated salaries, maybe not even touching the game as much, you know. And at least when it comes to Valorant, like, hey, whether I was trying to get involved in CS or not, like I've been involved in Valorant since the beta. I've been playing it hardcore since the beta, watch it 24/7. Like I feel like I have a really good grasp of what's going on in the meta and what goes on. So, you know, whether I'm a CS guy at heart or not, like I am all in on whatever I play. And I think my guys around me can see that, even in T1, even if the situation wasn't the best. I think everybody around me got to see that. And I think that, you know, whether I'm in Counterstrike or Valorant, I'm going to be doing that. Unfortunately, like you said, it's the opportunity. I live in North America. I'm from America. You know, it is what it is. Like the opportunities are just not here for Counter-Strike, and the few teams that are, you got to go stay in Europe for a long time. And I don't have any issues with that. I did that so much when we were playing 1.6, but you know, it's a different echelon of team to look for a vet like myself.
Yeah. So let's do it then. We're gonna kind of go backwards a little bit on this drama. So we'll start with the thing everyone's kind of talking about at the moment, which was T1 announced that they had brought in a coach, an assistant coach called Stunner FPS. And everyone's like, oh, okay, cool, guy's called Stunner, whatever. And then it turned out he was actually a convicted cheater from PUBG, where he played under the name Exco. Now, when I say convicted cheater, I don't mean this was a dude who, like, you know, was running around in pubs and annoying you and warping through the floor or dorming you from the other side of the map with a shotgun in a meaningless context. This was a guy who was actually convicted for cheating in competition. And a lot of people didn't like that not only was he able to just simply change name, move over to another game, but also that he was being picked up immediately by T1, who were fully aware of his past and actually actively hid it from people, which obviously they've released a statement now saying, we want to be transparent. No, the time to be transparent is before you lie.
So that I guess the reason why I commented and I actually tweeted back at T1 about it is because of that. It's because the words that were used. It was the words that we were and are fully aware of his past. Okay, so to take you back where we are in April right now, right? So I was the coach March, April, around that time till around Christmas time. This guy's name has been thrown at my face since August. Like one of those, like, hey, we want to get this guy in. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, I don't need a coach. Like, I don't need an assistant coach. Like, I'm good. You know, our team, I think, was doing fine. If anything, we had just brought a new IGL, or we were in the verge of that. I don't even know if Days was in at the time. So anyways, like I felt like our strats were good. If anything, we were having different issues in the team that I think that were preventing us from getting to where we needed to. That was like personnel wise. Like I think that guys like Austin, Crashies, Food, Brack, like amazing players. They just had beefs with some players on the team. And for better or for worse, I think that, you know, some decisions we could have made and some I don't really agree with. But I think that that was causing our performance to not be as well, like not us needing another analyst or whatever. Like the game is so new. Like we don't need a massive coaching staff for that. But they were always wanting to get this person in my face. And when I'm asking them, like, you know, do you have any other candidates? Like, can you tell me more about this guy's background? It's like he used to play a little bit of CS, like an MDL or something. So like obviously the background doesn't even like line up.
Right.
And then they were like, well, we have a bunch of like corporate candidates and this is our number one choice. And I'm like, okay, but like there's no background. And they're like, well, we want you to interview him. We want you to like start trialing him out, give him tasks to do, help him find scrims, have him give you certain like strats and stuff like that. And I'm just like, why? Like, what is this? And just in talking to him and briefly interviewing him and stuff like that, like none of this at all was ever mentioned to me. Like nothing about his past. I never even knew about PUBG. I never even knew he was a cheater until this came out. we were in the scrim, and then one of the guys like, hey, do you know this is Danny? Like, it's one of the, I think it was Profi or one of those guys, Vegas, maybe, that they posted that comment. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, how the hell would I know? And then it's like, you go into you start digging, you're like, damn, this guy even like legally changed his name to go about it differently. It's like, this guy really went out of his way to hide it. And it's like, whether you were and are fully aware, which is what the quote that T1 used, I mean, he's been pushed down my throat since roughly August. So that's
what's so special about the guy? I mean, like, why are they so adamant that this guy has to be part of T1? What am I missing?
What you're probably missing is, from my opinion, is that the lead scout, who he's the GM, or he says he's the GM, or tells everyone he's a GM. You know, he makes most, if not all, the decisions. And I think that Stunner has just been someone who has been ego stroking him on the back lines, right? Like, whether it's like, a T1 lost to the the homeless, which is now Dignitas, and I think that you guys could have done this, and he's like, oh, great idea, dude. Like, wow. Like, just like having a conversation, like making him feel good, because every single person that's kind of been like volunteered or staff member or anything like that is just like a friend of this guy. And it's like, none of them have any real experience in gaming. Like, we were thrown with another manager who, he seemed like a pretty decent dude, but the guy couldn't even do a damn thing. Like, his job was, when we were living in an apartment in Los Angeles, to like take us on Costco runs, because we were living in the middle of Inglewood with no vehicles during a pandemic. And we had a guy who was from Korea who spoke no English. And like, we couldn't even get Costco runs out of the guy. So it's like, you know, Wawa, who I think was a former Starbucks employee before he even got one of these opportunities and even found out about esports, probably did the same thing and is doing this, like getting people who were just like giving them opportunities based on his friendship with them and stuff like that, because it doesn't seem like their credentials match anything. And it's more of, like I said, like any decision that was being done with the team was always handed down from management and like passed through to Wawa, and he like made it happen. Like, whether it was a player getting upset, it was like, this is how the situation has to be handled. It's like, well, I can't even talk to Brax, who I've known for 10 years, about him being frustrated about a situation. I can't like pull him to the side and be like, yo, man, what's going on? It's like everything had to be handled the way management did. It was like a zoo, you know. We were playing in scrimmages, and we had like 3 people in our Discords watching a scrim. And if we lost one scrim, it was like, you got to take your break, your 1 hour break of your 8-hour day, to like explain to us why we lost a scrim. And they didn't understand the concept that like a coach is a player. Like, they didn't, like, before we got our 5th player, I was playing for them. Like, I'm actually a good player at this game. Like, I could probably go pro, but I like coaching so much that I don't want to. And I don't necessarily know if I could be the best player in the world. I think I'd be a pretty good player in Valorant, but I like coaching so much. But the reason why I like coaching is because I'm also like a 6th man. Like, I've ranked pretty much a lot. My stats are not bad at all when it comes to Valorant. We benched Skadoodle, and I was the best fragger on our team for T1 in one tournament. Like, I know what I'm doing. I just like the coaching side a lot. And it just became like one of these things that it's like, they just don't let you do anything. They don't let the players be themselves. And it just became kind of suffocating to a point. And, you know, that's one of the many things I would say that was causing certain frustrations. But yeah, I mean, it just became very tough to kind of make that some sort of better situation for the players, I would say, when there's like, it felt like it was like corporate, you know, where there's like the downfall of corporations sometimes is so many layers of management. It's like, there's so many filters. It's like so many layers. And it just felt like that. It's like, I don't think, like, if I likened it to like sports, and I'm like a Phil Jackson and I'm running my practice, like, why do I want the GM, the president, and a couple managers observing my practice, not only just observing, but criticizing, asking questions, wanting to talk to me and everything about it? It's like, why the hell am I here?
But like, also, I mean, like, sort of telling you have to have other staff kind of in there helping you out. I mean, you know, I'll be honest with you. When I look at like esports structures, especially in emergent esports, I can tell when an org is like not really clued in, because they generally tend to like overload with staff. You know, they get a coach, but they have an assistant coach and an analyst, and they bring in a fucking chef. you know, to cook the meals and do it. And you're like, guys, can we all just calm down? Like, you know, it's like,
the solution for them is just cutting a check. And that's not how I view it too, because even when they put us in crappy apartments in Inglewood with like 80% packet loss, I'm like, guys, I literally told you my one request is please find fiber optic in California and put us there. Where do they get us? Spectrum with 80% packet loss in the middle of Inglewood. And I'm like, hello, like, why are we here in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of the hood, with 80% packet loss, and we have first site qualifiers? It's like, oh, okay, well, no problem. Sorry about that. Let's just rent the Chinese theater in the middle of Hollywood, like during the elections, and people are just honking and shit. Like, things are popping off in California during the election. And
so wait, what happened? You ended up in a theater? Chinese theater?
Yeah, the Chinese theater, like the really famous one in Rush Hour and stuff like that in Hollywood.
I know it.
So we were there. Yeah, like, hey, amazing place. They do a lot of esports stuff. So shout out to those guys, like really cool dudes. Like they actually do a lot of esports stuff. So like a lot of people like do boot camp stuff. So like
I didn't know that.
Save the day. Yeah, like the base of, like, they have the seats of the theater, the base, they could pop up PCs from it, because it was awesome. So I was like, it's cool, but it was like kind of weird, like going to a Chinese theater, like in the middle of the pandemic in Hollywood, like, you know, every day going there, playing, going back home just to deal with the problem. But then, you know, like we were fine, whatever. And then, once we got back and once the first strike qualification paused, or we qualified and went to the next stage, they ended up moving us to Hollywood, like a different apartment. And that was like it was great that they finally did that. But it was like in November, it was like one week before the qualifier, before the first strike. And then, you know, we ended up being there for like 3 weeks, and then we flew home in December and things popped off after.
So I've seen your criticism of T1 publicly. You know, you've talked about ethics is the word that comes up a lot. I mean, a lot of it also sounds like incompetence, to be fair.
Right.
So what we've talked a lot about there is mostly incompetence. The ethical stuff, definitely lying about a cheater and trying to foist him onto you and all that stuff. That's ethics. But what other stuff would you say is ethical or unethical, rather?
Okay, yeah. So for me, like I'm a sales guy. When I was working in different jobs, like even in the bank, when I was doing loans and stuff like that, like I was a sales guy. So I've always believed in overpromise, underdeliver. Like, you know, like these guys are overpromising, underdelivering. You always underdeliver, or is it underpromise, overdeliver? That's like the number one thing, you know. Like
you underpromise and you overdeliver. Yeah,
right. So these guys were overpromising and underdelivering left and right. Whether it was like, we're going to recruit you, you're going to be a Nike athlete, you're going to get like tons of Nike gear, tons of Logitech gear, like all these gears, jerseys, merch, all this stuff. Like, you got nothing when you were on the team. Like, I was on the team for 9 months. I got 1 hoodie, 2 jerseys, which came at the very end, like 4 hats, which I don't even know. I have 1 fucking head. And then like 1 t-shirt, and that came at the end too. And like, you know, whatever, I'm a coach, fuck me, right? But like, what about the other players who were here, like Crashies and Food? Like, they were there for like 3 or 4 months. Like, they got like 1 t-shirt, 1 hoodie. Like, they got like a T1 chair and a computer like a week before they were released, and they got to keep it, which is fine, like no big deal. But it was like, it's not even about that. It's like, it's not even about that you're going to get these chairs. It's more of like, hey, we're sending you this chair. It's going to be there in a few weeks. Never gets here. Like, doesn't get here. And then you're like, you ask like a month later, and it's like, hey, where's the chair? It's like, well, we're considering moving guys to LA, so we don't know if we're going to send it. It's like, well, you know, can I just still get one, because I'm going to be back and forth, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, it's coming. Don't worry. Never arrives. And like, these things, like, they just don't arrive. Some of the things that they tell you, they tell you you're going to be like, they recruit players based on these premises, right? So like, oh, we're going to recruit you and you're going to be like a Twitch partner. So you have academy players who, by the way, I was the coach for the main team, academy team, and I had to stream 30 hours a month per contract. So I had to coach 2 teams and stream 30 hours. The T1 academy players, which, and mind you, I think that probably breaks labor laws, but that's a different conversation. They were promised, like, you know, we'll make you a Twitch partner. Like, this Twitch deal that T1 was working on, like, everyone was going to benefit from this. Like, no one benefited from this Twitch deal except 2 individuals, and that was Brax and AZK. And you can't even consider it benefiting, because they were forced onto this Twitch deal, which removed their ability to view their Twitch panel. So they can't even log into their Twitch and see their statistics anymore. So they have no idea how much money they're getting. Then they were going to get paid out by T1 at the end of the month. And they were like, fuck this. Like, I don't want to be a part of this deal. And it took like 3 months or months to get AZK and Brax out of these deals that they didn't even really want to be a part of, just so they can get back their access. And you know what happens? Like Brax and AZK were on like Liquid and C9 and other teams before. They had like 70-30 splits on their subs or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, now they went back to 50-50 and they can't get their 70-30 back. So it's like now they've technically cost them 20% on their subs for the rest of their life until they can get their percentages back. And like, these are things that I'm fighting about. Or like, we're moving to Los Angeles. You know, it's like Brax, I think he had a significant other at the time and was moving his stuff from Los Angeles. Like for me, I was just going to LA and like staying and coming back and forth. Like I wasn't going to do the full-blown moving thing, but Brax was. They had Brax pay for like his plane ticket and all this stuff. Like it's a big expense, $1,000 maybe to like plane tickets, shipping all your shit from Louisiana to California, movers, all that stuff. And it's like, okay, we'll reimburse you. And it's like, we've been in Los Angeles, month and a half has gone by. Not one manager has like contacted any individual about reimbursements. And it's like, yeah, we're going to set you up on like some program that'll send you reimbursements. Like, yeah, but like, why do I got to bring up the conversation for you to even answer or bring up the conversation to the individual you've to for this long? Like, the incompetence ties into a lot of things that in turn become unethical when they're rooted in lies, when they're messing with players' money, expectations, recruiting players based on false promise and hopes and stuff like that. To me, that's considered wrong because you're misleading individuals. And then all you're doing, and then like what some of these guys don't understand is like, these guys are just thrown in T1, like some of these like in the T1 division, like the NA side. SKT, legendary organization, man, been around for freaking ever. Yeah. But like T1's a different beast now that they've been, you know, bought out by Comcast and have inserted some of these individuals that were not involved in esports several years ago. They have no idea what's going on. They had no idea who the hell I was. They probably couldn't even they couldn't even bother to put my name on like Google or YouTube and find some videos about me. You know, unfortunately, you might have found like that one asshole video I made of myself when I was in Complexity, you know, whatever, what I completely regret. But like, they couldn't even find that to realize that like, maybe he's a different kind of guy. It's like, if you would have done a little bit of research, you would have known right out the gate that I'm not your typical like yes man. Like if like you should, but like, you know, Brax probably told them, hey, recruit Danny. Hey, Danny, come on by. You know, and it's like, okay, no problem. I'll join up. Pandemic just happened. Like I can't do shit here. No job. ESL just fucked us over. Florida unemployment system's not really working great for people who are independent contractors. So let's do this T1 gig. And, you know, I was trying to really find my way out like pretty soon after I got in, because I realized that I was brought here to be an executioner of tasks for someone, not to be the leader of a team. And there was always a differentiating factor about that, because the players knew the leadership that I brought. The players knew the value that I brought. And I mean, the players weren't even like Brax, AZK, some of those guys weren't even told that T1 was going to be parting ways with me. So it was like, when I messaged them and told them, guys, like, this is not going to work. They're like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, what's going on? It's like, well, then, you know, they don't even have those conversations, you know?
So what happened there when you ended up leaving? Like, was it, I mean, you know, what were the showdown talks like? Had they already made up their mind or what?
I assume they did, because what happened was, it was like qualify for first strike or bust. So we went to the Chinese theater. We failed at qualifying, but we had a next opportunity in the second qualifier. We had a disagreement, like in the sense of like, myself and the players did not want to continue calling or operating the same way that Days wanted to, because we didn't really bring Days into the team to call his way. We brought him to call like our way and like the new Valorant way, but he wanted to just fully insert his way. No problem. It just wasn't going to work. The players didn't want to do that. I did not want to do that. So I felt like the majority of the players and myself have more authority to make this happen.
Yeah.
I inserted myself in a different kind of way to, instead of as I was before when Days got on, to like give him his freedom to let him do his thing. And I saw our team progressively get worse and worse. I decided to interject myself, make some adjustments that needed to be made, and inject life into the team that way. And I think the guys will tell you that the team was very different. I think players who are in the know of Valorant can tell how T1 was from one qualifier to the next. We ended up qualifying to first strike. because of a lot of these things. And I think it was a huge success. Unfortunately, we ended up losing to 100 Thieves by like 11, like by 1 round or 2 rounds on 2 maps, like 13-11, 13-10 or something like that in the first round, the first strike single limb. Unfortunately, they end up winning the first strike champions. You know, to my mindset, it's like we've had this conversation of we're going to extend you, we're going to raise you, like big raise, big extension, all this and that. You've been doing a great job. You know, things have been going great. And then it became one of those things like we're going to have one-on-ones now after first strike. So naturally, I went last because I'm the coach. So I wanted everything to happen last. But I was still in Los Angeles at the time. So this was like, I don't know, a week or 2 before Christmas or something like that, because we were still there. I think it was like the 9th or the 10th of December, because my mom's birthday is like the 7th. So it was like around the time, like it was after my mom's birthday that we were like stationed, like about to leave Los Angeles after first strike. So long story short, like we were supposed to have like an in-person meeting. Like we're supposed to have like in-person or like a dinner, one-on-one, whatever, for the longest time. Like it just kept getting delayed and delayed. Like I was supposed to go meet, he was supposed to cook me dinner at his apartment, at our old apartments. That got canceled. He was supposed to come to my apartment. That got canceled. And then the night before I'm flying home, he's like, well, let's just do it on the phone. We have like a 10-minute one-on-one conversation after like accomplishing our goal and understanding that the team needs to probably restructure a little bit. And then it just sounds to me like everything is going good. Like we have changes. I told him some of the changes I wanted to make, some of the expectations that I felt like the org needed to change, like how they were operating, just a lot of different things, man. Like things had to change, and all sounded good. And we left a 10-minute one-on-one after this major accomplishment in some sort of way and wrapping up our year into like, hey, you know, sorry, I got to cut it short. We'll like finish it this weekend. Don't hear from him for a week and a half. Team plays in like some charity, like streamer tournament. I was never informed about. I'm like, all right, there's already some things going down. If these are going down, I hear from him 2 days later. It's like a couple days before Christmas, and it's like, hey, we're going our separate ways. You know, we should probably best we do that. And it's like, yeah, I don't disagree, but you're a fucking asshole for like going about it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then that's where it was like, well, you know, no problem. Like I'll message the boys and let them know. And then that's when, you know, some of the guys were, I think, were pretty shocked that things turned out that way and did not want it to be that way at all. I don't think that any of those guys wanted me to really go, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a bit of a shit show. Let me just wind it back a little bit so I can sort of ask about something in more general terms. And I just want to, you know, pick your brain in light of what happened with Stunner, you know, convicted cheater in PUBG. He was able to move over. You know, we had that as well. We had Baby Bay, you know, banned live on stream in CSGO, moved over to Overwatch. And right now, obviously, we've got issues where there are a number of players who are over in Valorant right now that are probably under investigation for match fixing by the Esports Integrity Commission. And there's a chance that even if they're banned in CSGO, they just get to play Valorant as if nothing happened. So Valorant has become something of a refuge for
like
people that are, it's kind of like, you know, we had a famous bank robber in Britain, Ronnie Biggs. He did a train robbery and he flew to Brazil because there wasn't an extradition treaty. And it kind of feels like that for Valorant. So I wanted to pick your brains on what is appropriate. Like, should Stunner be allowed to have a job for something he did in a different game, in a different space, at a different time? Has enough time gone by since Baby Bay's ban, you know, that it's okay and we should totally forgive him and exonerate him? What's the statute of limitations on a fresh start?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question. I think that I think the one thing that I, at least in my mind, can sit there and say is if the severity of the situation. So in the case of like the iBuyPower thing, you know, shame on them, obviously, but it was a meaningless game. You know what I mean? Like it didn't have no lasting implications or whatever like that. They did the crime, they did the time, and it wasn't anything that, you know, affected people in the long run. Baby Bay, same situation. It was like ESEA main or something like that, right? Long time ago, nothing really like crazy. I'm sure he did his time in the sense that he got banned and he got kicked out of the scene. I don't think that when he changed his name, he tried to really like hide it. He didn't change his first name. He just changed his alias. Like it is what it is. Like he probably just wanted like if I could have changed my alias many times, I would have as I grew up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we all would have. fRoD was 14 years old. Not the kind of, I didn't want to be known as fRoD when I'm 34, but it is what it is.
Yeah, here we are though.
Here we are. But yeah, I think with his a different situation, because if it's done in the premise of like major qualifiers, or you're affecting the ability of people to go on to the biggest stage, like that's a whole different, like imagine if iBuyPower was cheating in a major qualifier. Imagine if Baby Bay cheated in ESCA finals. Like the scale is different. So I think that with stunners, that's the situation you have to look at, is like situation might be a little bit more severe in the sense that the implications of the people affected were much wider than those in other situations. Then you tie into, did this guy even really serve his time? Like, why are you acting like the victim? I don't hear Brax I hear Brax and others talk about you should not do this and try and be an advocate of change, not to be like victim card, left and right. You know what I mean? Like this guy's got his victim card laminated by T1. And it's like, that's not what you need to be doing in this kind of, you should be remorseful. And it doesn't seem like that is the case. You change your alias, you change your first name to try and like legally hide behind some of this stuff. It's like, and then you say stuff like, we were and are fully aware.
Yeah.
I mean, I was the former coach, buddy. Like this guy's been name dropped in my Discord logs since like August. Not once in any moment or in my brief conversations with him until I was like, get this brick out of here. Like, did anyone ever tell me anything about the words PUBG or the words cheater ever?
Yeah.
You know? And it just seems like kind of fake to me. And I think that
but I mean, you know, to play devil's advocate on that point, brother, I mean, like, remember, he did serve, he was banned for 1 year from all competition, and that was at the end of 2018. You know, he's essentially served his time. So it does become, you know, people seem to be more upset about the sly nature of how he's inserted himself into the scene.
Yeah, because for example, like when we wanted to recruit Days, for example, they were like, hold on, let's have a conversation, because it's a different scenario than Brax. Brax was like considered a victim in the throwing thing. Brax Days is like the mastermind, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, but T1 at least asked about that, you know, and we had to, you know, obviously like we had like the conversations. I wasn't one of the guys that wanted to really get Days, but I think Brax really wanted to and whatnot. So they kind of ended up going that. I mean, they didn't give a fuck about my opinion anyway. So they ended up going that route anyways. But they at least had that conversation, but like they're fully aware. Like I guess in that case, it's like, then I have, if he served this time and everything is fine, but then like, why are you hiding it and like being this way about it and trying to be sly about it when like you should own it like a badge of honor, like everyone else has in that sort of case, you know? Like you're trying to come in and try and pretend like you are not someone who you were, or you say things.
You've changed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, or you're trying to like, like the whole were and are fully aware of this is just, that bothers me, because if you were and fully are aware of it, you would have told me that in August and we would probably have no issues, because you would have been upfront about your past, you know?
Well, what about the suspected match fixes then? Do you have any thoughts about that? I mean, because listen, I'm sure you hear things like I hear things, and I'm sure that when you were coaching over in America at the end of CS, I'm sure you heard a lot of stuff. And probably heard a lot of names, you know. I
had Zelsis on my team. He's obviously not implicated in any of that, but he's one of those like outspoken guys.
He's got the famous clip, hasn't he, where he called out some people.
Yeah, exactly. So since he's one of the more outspoken individuals about that, I've always kind of been like, Jordan, how the hell do you like know this shit? You know, he's like, seen the logs, man, seen the Discord things. Like, so I guess I don't know where he's gotten a lot of it, but that's where I've really heard of it. And I mean, to be honest, like, I think those guys deserve like a harsher punishment, because the precedent has already been set in some sort of situation. I don't know. I really think that this whole cheating stuff is like a wider range thing. I really think that the only way to cure it is maybe if these developers start like putting consequences in like the terms of service of like competing in the game, where they can potentially legally go after some of these people.
Okay.
Or like you have to submit your driver's license. I mean, Tencent already has my shit, right? So who cares? Like, I'll just give Tencent or Riot my stuff. If I get banned, like you forever blacklist my name and information from your game. Like, but it's like, I think that something has to happen to be able to remove these people, because I honestly would hope that the most severe punishment could happen, but I don't want people to rot in prison or anything like that. But I do just, I don't,
So
yeah.
you would advocate for a lifetime ban for from Valorant for a
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Because I mean, you're disrespecting like sport in general. That's like I mean, I'm an old school sports guy, so it's like you look like Pete Rose or something like that. Like you think Pete Rose should be allowed to like go to the NBA and be able to thrive there? It's like no, you should be able to have an asterisk as well. And like obviously different sport, so maybe that's kind of where it's like Counterstrike and Valorant, different sport. I understand, but I mean, people have to be putting like some of these punishments, like they should have real world consequence. And whether it's like probation or suspensions of like a year or prison time for like a year, something like that, like that should tie into something like this. And like that's why I'm at least grateful that there is something like ESIC that could hopefully tie into other
Mm.
games where it can normalize the industry, not just Counter-Strike. Obviously, Counter-Strike needs it the most, but I think that all gamers and all gaming industries should benefit from this. Just like I believe like a union should be for all players or for all gamers, not just for a select few. It's like we need something that could normalize this because I think my opinion doesn't matter in that case. Like I would hope severity, but people deserve a second chance, you know, in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the key thing is at the moment, right? What's passing off as a second chance is you haven't even been punished in the first place.
Right.
So it's not a second chance because you're still on your first one because
Yeah.
no
You've
one's
been your
punished
own
you.
judge, jury, executioner, and that
Yeah,
doesn't work. The public has to be at least able to do that.
and it's like I've seen a lot of players, because I've been doing all interviews around this stuff recently, and they're all of the mindset that it was kind of like, well, everyone was doing it, and we weren't being paid to play, and there's all these like rationalizations, and I think for me, I think the happy medium is this. Like I'm not as extreme as you in the sense. I don't want to see anyone banned for life. I really don't like the idea of life bans in general. I think you have to do something absolutely egregious for any panel of judges, and obviously we're just talking about sports here, to sort of essentially say you cannot be reformed. You will you will always be the asshole that did this thing. I really don't like that, and it's a concept that's creeping into society in general. You've probably seen it. Tweet from 10 years ago. Well, he's an asshole because he tweeted that 10 years ago, and you're like, it's 10 fucking years though. That's a lot of time. People can change, but we don't like to do it. We like to take people's worst moments and basically hold them permanently accountable for that forever, indefinitely. And I think I think in sports that's not the answer. I think in the same way that I know Brax will never be adjacent to anything like that ever again because of his experiences. We should be looking at guys like that who are reformed, and we should be doing more with those guys to educate players to not do it in the first place. Like, instead of putting them away like a dirty little secret, they should be up on a pedestal and say, yep, these guys fucked up.
Yeah,
And
like
and
someone
they know
like
the
Dave, for
costs.
example. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it didn't work with me and him on the same team.
He should be doing lectures, that guy.
But yeah, he should be a good advocate of that, like Steele did. I think Steele's done a great job of that, actually. I don't really have communication with Steele like that. My interactions with him have been extremely limited.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that, hats off to him, like to make his career strong and good, just like Brax, but also been an advocate of it, like the Beyond the Summit stuff and other things he's done, like to this day, he and Brax are very outspoken about that kind of stuff, and I value that a lot. And I think that the people don't really look at guys like that as like, sort of heroes in some way, but I think that some guys really should start looking at that, like guys like Braxton, guys like Steele, like stop looking at some of the negative in the past and look at like what they've done to change and the whole reform process. Because I agree. Obviously, I think like the severity of the lifetime ban, I think it's maybe I was going a little bit overboard, like passionate about it, and more of like, especially if like the people are trying to be like very deceptive about it. Like a lot of these guys, like they were very remorseful from the moment that they got caught and stuff like that. I think that as long as that they continue to do that, I think it's great. And Brax has always been good about that kind of stuff. And I applaud him a lot for it because he's been this happened to him at a very young age and he's matured a lot over time.
Sure. But I mean, kids are younger in general these days. They're not like, us two older guys that probably had to like, You know, I have a paper round and fucking all that at age 11, you know, and try and help your mother put food on the table and that sort of thing, you know. But like, so kids are just older in general, you know, before they sort of mature to become like what I was at 16.
Yeah.
Kid these days is 21 probably. And then on top of that, you know, you've got that when you play a lot of video games, there are aspects that, you know, you don't really have a perception of. And I see a lot of these kids as like, you know, really, really immature, not fully developed, and really not aware of their consequences. That being said, yeah, you know, I think there needs to be consequences. I hope when the bans come down, I hope Riot Games are going to mirror those bans.
I really hope so too. And I think that they should try and make that kind of precedent that we're not the place that you can just come to, and like we're not, what is that, witness protection program or whatever, and you can just come here and everything will be, well, we're gonna take care of you. No, we're not gonna coddle you here like that. And I think that that's also where people like myself in positions that can make some of these recruitments and things like that, they make also those, you know, we agree, you know, whether it's like, hey, no one's gonna like touch these guys for a year, then hey, we all stick to it regardless of if I need to make a big change or not. This guy's a good player. You know, I think that something should give like that. And I would hope that, you know, everyone could abide by that.
So let's talk about moving across to Beastcoast. Obviously, I know it was acrimonious with T1. It didn't take you long to find yourself in another organization. Obviously, I know, you know, Beastcoast from back in the day. It's an org that it's actually been around longer than people think. You know, I think it was like 2017 or something. How did that move come about? I mean, because it seemed to happen pretty quickly.
I mean, so obviously I had kind of we parted ways around Christmas time. I didn't put out that tweet until about mid-January, just because I wanted to give myself a little bit of time and I wanted to just process some things. I was potentially being courted before by other teams that were interested in me, so I think putting myself out there just kind of let others know what I was doing. I think a lot of people took notice as to where T1 was going. They also see that I'm an active player as a coach as well. You know, a lot of coaches, they just do their coaching thing. I think that they do, you know, whether it's like scheduling the scrims or observing and things like that. Like I'm in there, man. Like I'm the coach that will shoot the rock with you. And it's like, if I beat you in this 3-point contest, you're doing homework for me, you know, like, I'm very, very hands-on with the boys. Someone's sick, it's like, this is not a day off, boys. I'm coming in here. If I out-frag anyone, we're going to have conversations. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we're in there. And I think that, you know, with Beastcoast, it's just something that the first thing that I did is when they approached me, is I started talking to some of the players, which, you know, they don't really know me and I don't know any of the players. And I started talking to some of the players, and the first thing I realized is how great of a relationship they have with the ownership and management. How whatever they need, they get it. Full transparency. Not that many people, like, you know, defined layers of people who have positions, and I'm just like, wow, this seems like a really good place. Like the complete opposite of what T1 has in some of those cases, that it's like the full-blown respect of the players. They love this place. They prefer to be here over a lot of different organizations. So I like that a lot. You know, it reminded me a lot of like the complexity stuff before complexity became big time, where it was like, we just, you know, we're building our own thing. We're not in here to like really meme on other orgs and make our beefs. Like they just want to be a good org, do their thing, compete, and thrive. And I think that for me, like they obviously wanted to go very hard and dedicate fully into Valorant. They wanted to go after someone like myself with like that Counterstrike experience, someone that could build a team, be held accountable, responsible, like all that, you know, like Danny, you come in here, you recruit who you want, remove, like we have 2 empty spots, recruit players for those spots. If you don't like what we got, make changes. You are the end all be all there. And like, I don't operate that way anyways. You know, I still like take opinions from my players. I talk to management, everything like that. But just having that and actually physically, like knowing I have that is huge, because I've already made those changes. I think our team is ranked higher than the team has ever been ranked before. Beastcoast, we're like 25th, I think, on VLR. I think if you look at the last 2 months, we've only lost like I think I forgot what our records are in the last like 2 or 3 months since February, but it's going very well. We have no permaban on any map, which is something that I wanted to do from the very beginning. We play every single map at all times. I would tell you why our Haven percentage is a little bit low played, but I don't want to get into that because maybe it's part of our pick ban strategies in some cases. But we play all maps. We want to do everything. We want to change the game. And, unfortunately, our results haven't been fully there yet. We did lose to BBG very, very close, who ended up beating Sentinels. But we've been playing on a comp that was previous to meta. I think that now when the new meta, like we're fully in it. We in fact have players who thrive in this meta because we have people who love Viper and stuff like that. We just didn't want to go head first into the last qualifier because we were just able to start finalizing our last few roster spots. So we figured let's, with the week of practice, let's go into it with what we know rather than like try and, get ahead of ourselves and stuff like that. And Riot just reverted that patch right before too. So it's a good call to do that. But now we're full blown into our new shit and it's been going very, very good. Like, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but like we've been playing the best I've seen us play in a very long time, even with like T1 and stuff like that. Like we're doing very well, I think.
What do you consider to be kind of a realistic target then? I mean, like, the Valorant scene at the moment, it's so up and down. Like you say, the rankings are changing all the time, even to the point where, different rankings have very different perceptions about which teams are at the top. And, so what is the kind of like target you're setting yourself while you would be?
Well, we really want to, we really want to be a team that can compete. I think we'll say especially I would say top 5 is probably a good place, but in NA, how competitive it is, I would think top 10, because at least top 10 kind of puts us in firing range that we can, win 2 games, like win 2 nice BO3s and put us into a really, really great situation. And I feel like we match up. We haven't played that many matches, but I think that we match up very well against some of the better, more structured teams.
Yeah.
We understand how that goes. I think that, in some cases our weaknesses can be a little bit more of whether it's like chaos, but also we call it Navi, the people who play that Navi style here. Like, they just drain the clock on you. And, it's like when you get too antsy and you don't play with enough discipline, they beat you and stuff like that. So, that's been something that I've been working heavily on our guys because, I played against Navi a lot, and I know the Navi style works, but I also know that this game is much different than Counterstrike, where, in Counterstrike, you just had like a smoke or a molly to slow down the final 20 seconds of the Navi exec, maybe drain the clock out on them. I mean, here you got way more than that, bro. You got fucking walls, you got Viper, you got so much shit. So it's like 20 seconds, oh, we got that, no problem. So it's like our goal, we got to flip the clock, switch things around, drain it down to like sub 30 seconds, don't use any utility, and then utility whore them until they have nothing to do and make them look bad rather than just win rounds. Because when you win rounds based on clock, especially in Valorant now, you're getting money fucked. So it's like, this is how you really can put a team like that down. It's just we had to learn that. And honestly, we didn't learn that until a couple of our guys were sick and I had to step in and play like 7 or 8 scrims against some teams that do this. And I was force feeding it and showing them how it's done and how we win on utility, how we make these teams look terrible by just an omen flash and a shock dart at the end. You know what I mean? Like, just because you cause enough delay that there's not enough time. You can't.
Yeah. So look, I'll ask you a couple more questions and then I'll let you get back to your job. Let's talk about what you want from the Valorant scene, because you've got an interesting perspective. You've seen how NA kind of collapsed in Counterstrike, and you saw all that bullshit with the Louvre agreement and ESL and everything else. And now obviously you're in this emergent scene again, kind of like it was back in the early days of Counterstrike. Everyone's vying to be number one. Everyone's got their own ideas. No one really knows where it's going. What is it you want to see Riot Games do to ensure the future of Valorant as a successful esport?
Yeah, I mean, so this kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Overwatch days, just because they're like,
and of course you played over there actually, didn't you?
I briefly, and like I was with FaZe Clan during that time. And the thing with FaZe Clan is like, I kind of realized I was in management with them, but I realized a little bit early on that I don't think that they wanted to get into the Overwatch League. So I realized that Overwatch might have been just like a little project for them. So obviously, like I was doing much more things on top of coaching and doing things, but
sure,
that's different. I think when it comes to Valorant, it's a little bit different because, to my understanding, without going into too much detail, it seems to me that Valorant or Riot has told the parties that want to be considered for franchising that you have to be playing ball today.
Mm.
Like you have to be involved investing actively to be considered a candidate in the future.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, everyone who's playing ball right now should have the understanding that if franchising happens and you have to cut a 6-7 figure check, you can get access to that money.
Mm.
So it seems to me that like things are going the right way, because it seems to be that like this understanding is set in stone beforehand, where it wasn't like maybe Overwatch League where it was like, well, no one knew, and then they're like, oh, 20 million, then 25, then who knows how many millions of dollars. It seems like, and that also seemed like it was just for like NFL owners and stuff like that, and just like a Ponzi scheme to get NFL owners in here,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, I think that they would be doing it differently, and I'm really curious to see how it is. But I think it's I'm optimistic about it, because I think that everyone that's involved in the scene now knows what they're getting into.
Mm.
And you know, hopefully Riot does select the teams that are involved. But like I said, they understand, like even like with someone like Beastcoast, like if franchising became an opportunity, you know, I'm confident that they would do everything in their power to try and get in there, because if not, then why would they be in here today, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that, so that understanding is the reason why you see people in the game now, because they want that. So if you're not, why are you spending the money now, right? And someone like I'll just give you an example, like the Pittsburgh Knights, because I know them and we were talking to them, and I know GB James, he's my good friend.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know him from back in the day as well. Yeah.
So I know that they were like considering wanting to be like a tournament organizer in Valorant, not really like a team. But from my understanding, like they have to have a team if they want to be considered for more. So it's like now they have a team and they do tournaments as well. So it's like it's fantastic. But at the same time, we all know that the Knights would not be in here if they did not or could not raise the money to get into the league if they happen in the future. And I think that everyone understands that. It's just how many spots are you going to have in NA? Because the part that I understand why there's more opportunity in NA, but I think that it's going to cause something kind of different, maybe strange, because of how many, you know, like how many tier 1 organizations are invested in an NA team, like 20, 25, how many in Europe, 5, 6, like, I understand why. And you know, I think I understand fully, but it's going to start causing that weird stuff where it's like how it was before, where like EU would get a bunch of invites, NA would get none. It's going to be NA gets all of them, EU gets none, and people are going to be upset about it. But it may have to be one of those it is what it is situations, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, Riot Games has always had a slight NA bias, let's say, for a number of reasons. Obviously, I mean, they're ostensibly, despite being owned by Tencent entirely, you know, their head office is in, you know, California, and, you know, all of that stuff. So, I mean, you know, and I think what Riot's done brilliantly is they've identified all the ways Valve have fucked up with Counterstrike.
Yeah.
And by fucked up, you know, I'm not trying to be too sweeping about it, but I mean, you know, there's certain things these North American owners want from their esports games, and you don't get it with CS. There's no inbuilt revenue stream. There's no developer support. And as a result of that, you know, they're moving over, and Riot Games have said, well, if we want to turbocharge our esport right at the start, what better way than getting established orgs, established players, established coaches, established broadcast talent that are all coming over from a game that's very, very similar. But you imagine probably about another 18 months down the road, I think Valorant will look super different to how Valorant is even now. I think it'll get further and further away from CS the more we go. So, and still things like putting the coaching slots into the game, I saw being leaked with those.
Finally.
Yeah. And you know, it's like, listen, they are capitalizing on all the negative headlines Valve generate from the community by essentially pandering to that and saying,
and what has Valve done since? You know, they've copied a couple of their updates, like pinging certain things like that. I mean, and in my opinion, like I'm okay with those things, but they're basically oversimplifications of the game. You know, I come from we watch POV demos of myself with my team every now and then, just like randomly, like this fRoD versus 4 Kings and stuff like that. And
classics.
They're like, what are you guys typing every time? I'm like, we're typing our fucking money, bro. And like, we gotta like we don't have like when you hold tab, you don't see your people's money. Like
Yeah.
it was such a whole like in order for us to be like an elite team, we spent so many hours on the things that now you can just hit a button and it's spoon fed to you. You know what I mean? And it's like, hey, no problem. But I mean, it doesn't really like add so much value to the game. And I think that, you know, whether it's the Valves, the CSPPAs, and the ESLs of the world, that they got to look at the longevity of the game. You know, this thing has been around for 20 years. Like it's probably not going anywhere, but it's like, it's just like our planet. Like if you fuck it up, it will die. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
our planet could be around forever unless we don't fuck it up. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the planet will still be around. People won't.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah,
and gaming will still be around. CS won't. You know,
it's like it's. You know, I'm hoping the one thing Valve always seems to understand very intelligently is competition. I think historically you get the best out of Valve when they feel the heat from other people. You know, you saw that a little bit.
I want to say something. I'm sorry to say that actually.
Yeah, go on.
So after the whole ESL fiasco with Carmack and Erlich Bachman, I wrote a like 300, 400 word, maybe more actually, like a big ass fucking paper.
Right. And well, it's 750 words is one side of A4. So yeah, if it was
big, it
was
it was probably about 5-7. It was almost 750 because it almost took up a whole page. This is explaining my phone call with ESL, what I think is going on, the implications of what's going to happen to Counterstrike and NACS. I went to valve.com. I went to every single human being on their website that had a contact me email and sent them that email. And I was able to get a response from a few individuals, got onto a conference call with, what's that guy's name with the I? Damn, I gotta look it up now. Let me see who it was, because he's a big guy over there at Valve. Got into a conversation.
Edo.
Yeah, him. Got into a conversation. Yeah, Edo Magal. Got into a conversation with him, and recorded conversation with him and another individual from Valve, explaining every single little detail. And I mean, I already knew that I was going to Valorant. So let's just say a couple curse words and my passion really shone through there, because that was my last hope of basically saying, you guys are fucking me and my boys over. We're not going to have to resort to looking elsewhere. And I promise you, this game is going to die, especially in this country, because of the actions that you're making. And Valorant will eat your lunch. So they can't say I didn't tell them either. So like where I've been tweeting like an asshole, or people want to perceive as that because I'm saying about what's going on, about like what I think. Well, I've also been doing a lot of shit on the back end that I've been trying to get done that no one really knows about. And then I've given up hope as well because of stuff like that, because I've had the conversations with the Carmacks of the world. They don't give a shit. I've had the conversations with the Idos of the world. They don't give a shit, you know? And it's like, okay, well, I don't know what else to do now. Like I've given my whole life to this game. I will continue to do that. I remember I saw a video, I think, of you and Vanity one day, and you mentioned something that like I could have done. Like I would fucking love to be like a commissioner. I told Valve that, you know what you should do? You should hire someone like myself to run a fucking league that you should make for Counter-Strike. So it's like, I would love to do that. But you know what happens? No one ever reaches out to me. So it's like, I reach out to people, but man, I get denied so many times. I have players like the big shot players of the NA scene don't respond to me, don't answer jack shit. It's like, I can only hit on a girl so many times before you get rejected, right? And like feel like you got to change your approach, or you just don't do it no more. So it's like I got tired of trying to do those things, and I am still here. Would still love to do it, but people, my dad always said, like, you could lead a camel to water, but you can't force them to drink.
You definitely can't. No. Yeah. Well, look, it's been great to talk. It's kind of like, again, a bit of a weird, sour note. I think some people don't understand. My perception is that I think, Valorant's going to succeed in North America, and a lot of that is going to be predicated on CS's
Valve's failures.
And an inability to change a little bit and move with the times, which on the one hand is what makes the game so great, that it is this like, high skill ceiling throwback. But on the other hand, when you're talking about an esports scene, if you want an esports scene to survive, you got to move with what's current and what's happening.
But that's how, like, I know that you were involved with CGS, but were you aware that like Valve, they purposely did not issue TV licenses so 1.6 can thrive at all in North America? So it's like Valve hand in hand with CGS, killed the ability for even a 1.6 tournament to have function in North America, but still allowed it in Europe. That's why the 1.6 scene was able to continue on in Europe, and ESL was able to at least have TV licenses to produce tournaments over there. But it was like Valve wanted to kill NACS 1.6. Like, they wanted it. They worked hand in hand with CGS to make it happen. That's why you could not go and play other games and stuff like that. That's why AZN got fined, because he went to play a 1.6 tournament on a local event, you know? It's like their MO was to kill 1.6 in this.
I mean, and again, I heard all the same stuff, but I don't know how much of that was actually coming from Valve and how much was actually coming from CGS executives, because the CGS executives, much like, you know, what we're seeing now with a lot of these NA owners, they weren't really interested in the global market, even though they expanded super quickly. That was almost like a stats padding exercise. They always felt the money was going to be in the American TV deals. And
you could tell, actually, you were so right about that, because it always felt like when we would talk to the other teams, like the Birmingham Salvo and all the other guys, it was kind of like, damn, they're kind of doing you guys dirty over there in EU, like whether you're production or the money or whatever. Even I think the salaries might have been lower over there too.
Yeah, I think all of that's true, and not to mention, right? Think about, you know, guys in that first CGS event going to the Playboy Mansion. We went to fucking Amiga Sector on Corporation Street.
Yeah, but like you said the other day, we have budget bunnies, so it wasn't all.
Yeah.
I think I was more interested in talking to Jason Kidd by the bar than dealing with. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, but still, you know, there was this disparity, because I think they felt that the success. You know, you needed foreign teams to make the league interesting and appear global. But what they were really interested in was definitely the American market. But I mean, also as well, I mean, you know, that came with a few benefits, because no one ever got fined for going to an I-Series or whatever in the UK. I mean, as long as you sent in a letter saying, look, I'm entering my team into this, they generally let you go. They didn't really care.
But I think that, you know, them allowing at least those TV licenses to continue being issued out there is what allowed the European scene. Because if they would have done that over there, that would have killed the EU 1.6 scene. That would have forced all those players like the Forest and all those guys to switch to CGS. But thankfully, that didn't happen, because they would have gotten dog shit treatment. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, yeah, there would have been. We would have killed the 1.6 scene, and then we would have all been trying to rebuild the 1.6 scene like 8 months later.
At least the European scene kept it propped up, and it's all-time high. Not all-time high, but like it kept it really propped up, so that when CGS failed and we came back, EU was dominant, kept it no problem. And yeah, the only people that really suffered from it was NA, but, you know, rightfully so, since I guess, you know, we took the biggest
you took the risk
for CGS.
Yeah, you took the risk, you know. That's how it is.
Yeah, some of it, I mean, we didn't even have a choice, you know. It was like we were with Complexity, our contracts were like sold over, so it's not like I really had a choice. And obviously I would have still gone over, but yeah, no one really had a choice in NA, you know. It was like game's dead.
Yeah. So look, well, I'll tell you what, before I turn this into another hour-long discussion about the CGS, I am actually going to be doing a documentary about that, I think, probably next year or the end of this one. I want to get the definitive story, so I'll definitely hit you up when we do that. But look, as always, you know, thanks so much for your time. Is there anyone you want to give a shout-out to, anything you want to mention before we pop off?
No, just a shout out to Beastcoast, all the guys out there, the players, the management. You know, I really appreciate everything they've done for me and this opportunity. It's been godsend for real. I've just been really enjoying it so much, and the players as well. Like, I value them so much, because they didn't really know me. You know, they could judge me however they want to, and they've you know, really done a cool job of like welcoming me in and also listening to me. And, you know, we've been doing a good job of that. So to me, it's a new experience in this world for me, but I've been enjoying it so much. And yeah, thank you to you and your team. I think Sam, and say hi to Duncan for me whenever you get a chance to as well. So
probably a little bit later on today, actually. So yeah, I'll pass on the hello. But look, well, thanks so much. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And there it is, the legend of fRoD. Always forthcoming with his views, known for Counterstrike, hoping to be a big name in Valorant over there. And we wish him every success. And we're hoping to see you back for another episode of the Richard Lewis Show with another guest like this one very soon. So until then, take care of yourself.